Hi, everyone. Welcome to Prevention Education, the podcast that teaches you everything about prevention. Thanks for listening, and let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another Prevention Education episode. My name is Kylie, and today I have Cory on with me. So, Cory, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Cory Esslinger, and I am the Coalition Development Coordinator with Preferred Family Healthcare's Prevention Department. And happy to be with you today and kind of talk about some topics.
Yeah, I'm happy to have Cory on here. Every time he pops on the podcast, it's filled with a lot of knowledge. So if you haven't listened to one of Cory's podcasts on here before, definitely go and listen to one of those as well. It's full of a lot of really great information. So to hop in today, what we're going to be talking about is finding stakeholders in your community and how they can help you to kind of go for the cause or find the cause or help the cause that you're
Yeah,
wanting in your
yeah.
community. So, Cory, first for the listeners, what is a stakeholder?
Stakeholder can be really anybody that has a stake in your cause or what you're trying to fight or go for. Somebody that has the ability or power, so to speak, that can make a change. So, like, you could consider, let's say, an assistant or a secretary. Yes, technically they could be a stakeholder, but typically we think of somebody that has direct correlation to impact change. So you're looking for maybe like the sheriff or the CEO or CFO or COO or something like that that maybe has more of a direct impact. We'll take the secretaries all day long
Yeah,
because they may have their ear, right? But if they have a hard time trying to impact change, maybe we need to have a different stakeholder at the table that can more quickly impact the change. Uh,
of
so,
course. So like for example, if we have if we're trying to reduce substance use with youth,
yeah,
one stakeholder that can be really important that is someone in the school system. Maybe like
yeah.
um, what are they called?
Counselor,
No, well, counselor
or,
works. I'm
or
thinking more higher up. Um,
superintendent or principal.
Superintendent.
Yeah.
Yes, that's who I'm thinking of. Like they would be a really good person to advocate for your cause as well because they have so much influence in the group that you're trying to target.
Yeah, and you bring that up. So currently, I've been working with some vice principals in middle school because they have the ability to change policies or things like that in their school,
Yeah.
and that's the other thing, knowing your community with those stakeholders because every school or county operates a little differently in some of those. So fortunately for us, our schools have their own ability to impact their local school policy versus
Hmm.
some districts don't have that ability. They actually have to go through superintendent or a board to impact those. So knowing that can dictate who you reach out to or who you're having meaningful conversations with to impact change. So, and I have to mention, I mean, we just got done with the Super Bowl. So, I feel like we're kind of like a Jason Travis Kelsey duo most of the
Oh my
time, you
goodness.
know, on podcasts.
That's
But I
true.
mean, Chiefs Super Bowl champs again. I mean,
Yeah,
it for Missouri, that's a good thing. And
it is.
it ties into what we're talking about with stakeholders, right? Like they're making big changes right now.
They
Um,
are.
so
Yeah.
they're swapping out, and sometimes as coalitions we have to do that too. They're replacing
Yeah.
their offensive coordinator with who knows who right now, but he's going to Washington, and they're raking in some of those key stakeholders, that on their team, on their squad to make things and make a better impact. And so, tying that back to where we're at, it's important to have the right people at the table or on your team to impact those changes and make it efficient. So
Yeah,
nice
of
little
course.
plug for Casey. I mean, you have to. We can't have a
You
podcast and not
have
talk about
to. Yeah,
it.
exactly. Especially when it happened just, a few weekends ago. Was that
Yeah,
last week? 2 weekends? I don't know. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think that you
So
brought up a really good point right there. Yeah, we're on a prevention podcast talking about stakeholders, but you have stakeholders in everyday life. Like everything that you're passionate about, whether it's in your job, if you play sports, if you're just in a community group, if you're a teenager that's in student council, like you have stakeholders in absolutely everything. They just might not be called stakeholders. They might just be called, members or um, just community individuals, but they are they're everywhere. They're in everything. It doesn't matter what you are or who you are. You said you have stakeholders around you at all times.
yeah,
So
and that's a valid reason to always be looking
yeah,
for member recruitment, or I'm the social butterfly most of the time when it comes to personal and work life. It doesn't matter.
yeah.
Though my wife's starting to beat me out. We're spending too much time in the store, but
Oh man.
it's that ability to have that networking and talking to anybody and everybody you come into contact with, because you
Yeah.
never know. I've
Yes.
come across some great connections, just from being involved in the community, with my kids growing up and playing ball, playing sports, and the the people that you can come in contact with that you don't even know are important
Hmm.
is eye opening. It's going. I'm sure lots of our listeners have traveled or done stuff, and
Yeah.
my sister-in-law ended up going to Vegas around the Pro Bowl thing, for football, and she ended up running into an NFL star. Whether she knew it, at the beginning of their
Yeah.
conversation or not, but little things like that. I mean, it happens all the time, being in the right place, the right time, and it most of the time you don't just wake up, walk outside, and run into somebody. Like it does require some work and effort,
Of
and
course.
that's what's awesome about it, because when you start advocating or start following your passion, it's not it's less of a sales pitch, because it's everyday conversation, and that's a lot of the times what we find in our coalition work, in our day-to-day life. We try to convince somebody, and when you don't have to do that, things flow a lot easier. You know, so, and I know you working in prevention for what you have, and then the child life, type of thing. I mean, those are your passions, those are your things. So when you have
Yeah.
conversations, it flows. Um,
Exactly.
versus if I asked you to have a conversation about agriculture, you might look
Ooh.
at me weird. Yeah,
Yep. I would not know one thing to
yeah.
say.
And so making sure, and I say that and I bring that up, it seems off topic, yes, but at the same time, maybe I'm not the right person to go out and have connections with stakeholders. So
Yeah.
there may be stakes, as I say in our title, stakes in the backyard, that I just don't know or I don't have connections with. So it may be better suited for somebody else to go out and have those conversations and have those meaningful interactions. And, it all goes back to networking, being that social butterfly. And, I don't have a direct connection to legislation, but I know somebody that does. And
Exactly.
so, that's kind of a handy thing when it comes down to it. If I need to make a call or I need to find out something, having those people, because stakeholders aren't just who shows up at the table. So,
Yes.
that's why I kind of cliched it, stakes in the backyard. We have our house, we have our area, and, we have sit down at the dinner table, good old traditional times. You had your core family at the
Hmm.
table,
Yep.
sitting, eating, conversing. But you may have a friend that comes over, or you may have your neighbor that's watching your house when you leave. Those people are just as important to impact change as the core people sitting around that table. And
Yeah.
so that's why this is such an important aspect of coalition or even just everyday life. You know, I fully believe that yes, we do these podcasts for prevention. However, there's a lot more behind it and can apply in everyday life.
Yeah.
As you mentioned earlier, I mean, you know, if there's a route to where you want to go, it boils down to the connections that you have, um, or how much you socialize. I mean,
Mhm.
and that's a bad. I always said, you know, it's always about what you, not what you know, but who you know, and it's a 50-50. I think as I've got older, I've realized that yes, knowing who you know is beneficial, but you also have to be knowledgeable. So it becomes, you know, one of those things of, uh, you know, who do you know, and are you knowledgeable on who you know?
Yeah,
So yeah, that.
exactly. And you want to make sure if you're asking someone to be a part of something, or if you see a passion that they're in, you don't want to just tell them like, okay, yeah, it's on you, good luck. I'm here if you need me, but to run with them and to have that conversation flow and to um, try to have new ideas come from them and just like show that you care that they're passionate about it too
Yeah,
is really cool to the person that wants to become a stakeholder in it. Just to show them like, I don't want you here just because of your title. I want you here because of your knowledge, how much you can bring to the table for this, and just like how much you appreciate them as a person and what they can do for your cause is really important to make them feel like they're there for a real reason. So,
yeah, and you know, and that brings up the valid point of, you know, with them, we call it in prevention, and what's in it for me. And
yep.
so giving them that desire to be impactful, not just to be present. And,
Hmm.
you know, I mean, yeah, we can show up to work every day, but when we have a goal or a task or something that we're working towards and it's us that it depends on, it's a
Yep.
lot more meaningful than just being present. And
Yep.
so when we look at stakeholders and having those, really driving what's in it for them. Um, why is it important not only for us to have them, but why would it be important for them to be part of this?
Yeah.
And so really honing in on what they're good at, their skills, their knowledge, and their connections.
Yeah.
So that, you know, we, one of our local car dealerships here, they're really passionate when it comes to suicide, mental health, awareness. So if we ever
Yes.
do things around that, we know we could reach out to them and they would be more than supportive. Do they sit on any coalition? Absolutely not.
Nope.
But they're in the community and they have a drive and a passion for that.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, and that's half of it, knowing that they exist and what they're passionate about, knows when this comes around or if we focus or address that, I have somebody that I can reach out to and have a conversation with, and they would be more than willing, to support it, to back it, to host it, whatever we may need,
Yeah.
because it's something that they're real passionate about as the owners of the dealership and want want to be viewed for that, so to speak. So
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You brought up a really good point in that too. In the prevention world, the stakeholders don't need to be a direct part of your coalition. I think I thought that at the beginning of my prevention years was like, oh, a stakeholder is someone who stakes at your coalition meeting and engages and comes up with ideas. And yes, those are stakeholders, but also you can have a side list of stakeholders in your community where if you're putting on an event, so say you're putting on a back to school event, but you don't have any school people in your
mm-hmm.
coalition, well, then you have a stakeholder in your community that you can reach out to, like a counselor or a teacher or principal, any of that. That is kind of like your go-to list. Those people are pros in that section. So even though they're not sitting in your coalition meetings, in your coalition, there's still a stakeholder in the community that you can reach out to. So those stakeholders don't need to be in attendance to your meetings or have their name on anything, but they can just be a really good resource to go to
Yeah.
if you're doing an event, coming up with some kind of campaign, or just wanting to do something different in your community than the normal thing that you do. Stakeholders are everywhere, everyone.
They are. And, they, we like to have them sit at the tables when we're making big decisions.
Of course.
Just because that gives them that buy-in because, but yes, you're right. They don't have to be, but we highly encourage it. So,
Yeah.
when we have those conversations, or let's say we're writing for a grant, um, we're going to pull in the pieces or those stakeholders, or at least put the invitation out there like, hey, we're writing for this grant. Let's say we'll use the car dealership owners um, that we just referenced. If they were writing a suicide awareness or mental health grant. So we may be reaching out to them in the beginning and say, hey, we're writing for this grant. Is there any pieces that you would like to see? Or do you want to be part of the planning process?
Yeah.
Because that also gives them a little pride of ownership as well. And so that's awesome to see, but absolutely they don't have to be. It could be a quick email or a phone call that says, hey, we're working on this, and they would say, oh, hey, make sure you put this and this, or can you put
Yeah.
this and this in there. And that's all they want is that input, and that's it. And sometimes that's good, like you said, they're the professional, they know sometimes those aspects better than we do, someone else that we work with may. And so being able to tap into those, and you brought up advertising and media and those type of things for marketing campaigns. And with our focus being youth substance use, uh,
Hmm.
youth is a huge part of that.
Yeah.
We could put in a marketing campaign. We won't disclose my age because we like to keep that a number instead of guessing. But I'm not, surprisingly, I am not 18 anymore. So
Yeah.
um, knowing the curves and knowing the trends, right? Like we
Yes,
don't know those. So what better
exactly.
way to reach youth than to have them part of that as a stakeholder buy-in in our community and our coalitions. And yeah, I can get on TikTok, but I can't do them. I mean, I
Yeah,
probably could because I'm cool like that, but they're not going to be near as trendy, as a youth
exactly.
and peer to peer. So making
Yeah,
sure, you know, those pieces and components are at the table when they're needed. And going back to your focus, who is your focus? Who are you targeting? Is really going to shape who you're going to ask to be at the table, who you're going to ask for a resource, and what that stakeholder group looks like.
of course.
Um, when we look at one of our coalitions did an opioid summit, and their target audience was health professionals and general community. That stakeholder list is going to look a lot different than addressing youth substance use on alcohol, maybe.
Yeah,
Um, and so knowing your goal, knowing your focus is really what drives who you're going to reach out to and recruit as a stakeholder for your cause.
yeah, of
So,
course. And I think it's important to note that reaching out, making that list, kind of pulling together people that you think would want to have a say in this is important. But also being open to the fact that people might hear about what you're doing and they might approach you, or you might run into someone, be like, they might ask, "Oh, what did you do this week?" And you can bring up that, "Oh yeah, I'm doing this for this, and we have a meeting, every Tuesday at this time." And it could be the people that you least expect to join and
yeah,
that they want to have a say, just because you don't know everything about everyone. So if you mention it to someone that you might not even think that wants to be a part of it, people surprise you. And so
they do.
having that
They do.
list is really good, but also keeping your mind open, and just like you said, running into someone at the store and telling them about something you're doing could spark a conversation and could encourage them to kind of join in on what you're doing as well. So keeping your
Yeah.
mind open is really
Yeah.
important when trying to find stakeholders.
Well, and, you bring that, it made me think of our situation we've got currently. We have a grandmother that sits and goes to coalition meetings because
Yeah.
of something that personally happened. And so, is that going to impact change? We don't know.
Yeah.
She would be a great person if we were advocating or talking to legislator, talking about policy change, which is a huge component that we want to see changed in prevention work.
Yeah.
And so having that personal story, having that the heartfelt emotion,
Hmm.
I can talk about it all day long, but unless I have something personable or relatable, it may not impact the way that the grandmother, the mother, the aunt, is able to
Yeah.
talk about it firsthand. And
Exactly.
so, like you said, you never know, because we don't know everybody's life story. I can't, even though we've come far with Facebook and everything, I mean, I still
Yes.
don't know everything.
Yeah.
Uh, so, it could be the cashier at a
Yep.
grocery store. Just, oh, hey, how was your weekend? Most of the time, it's, oh, yeah, it was good. How are you? Good. And that's at the end of the conversation. They continue
Yes.
checking you out.
Yeah.
But what would happen if they said, oh, hey, how was your weekend? Did you guys do anything exciting? Oh, yeah, we held this rally. We did this. We implemented, just got excited about it. And they're like, oh, really? I had a niece that died from or was impacted by, oh,
Yeah.
well, we would love to have you. And, who knows? That could be the best, I call it a ringer, that you
Yeah.
have at your meeting because it's somebody that's not expected.
Yep.
Um, but it's that personal relation. And sometimes that's that missing component that we have, that we always miss when having those conversations. Because I can
Yeah.
go out and say, hey, I think we need to, move the policy around alcohol density. And so that meaning, well, right now they can only be, let's say, 1,000 feet within a school. And so I say, well, I think we need to increase that and let's go 2,000 feet. Well, and they ask why. Well, if there's a personal impact story because somebody did something because
Hmm.
it was so close, that's going to hit home a lot better than me just talking up there. Well, it's because it's way too close and kids could do this or this
Yeah.
could happen. That's great. Yeah, hypothetically, anything could happen.
Exactly.
But when you put the face and the story with somebody, it hits home a lot easier, a lot quicker,
It does.
and lasts. And so, not just thanking your traditional businessmen as stakeholders or your health department, like those are all great.
Hmm.
And but also thinking outside that box. Who's our target? If it's youth, we need to have youth present. Um,
Yeah.
if it's
Exactly.
advocacy and policy change, maybe we need to find some people that have some personal stories. So when we go have those conversations, they have the emotional pull. Because that's the idea, right? Whenever we talk, let's say to legislators or local city officials, when something comes up, we want the first thing to pop into their mind is us and
Yep.
why we want what we want. And
Yeah.
so, however we can do that, whether it's emotion, whether it's a personal story, whether it's, um, hey, if you do this, we can figure out a way to collaborate and make this change. But making that in the forefront of their brain, so when something comes across their desk where their, you know, radar, first thing they go, oh, hey, I need to call Cory because he's the professional, he knows, and be their information source, so to speak.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so it goes a lot deeper. I mean, yes, stakeholders are key. Stakeholders are awesome. Um, but having the right ones is even better.
Yes. Yes.
So
So true.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
And
mean, I
it,
think that's where it is. I mean, when it comes to effective change, is having the right people at
yeah,
the table. So
exactly. If you have a group of people yes, they're super passionate about it, but they don't know, what's the next step, or if they don't have the right connections, it can be like you're hitting a wall.
Yeah.
But if you have the right people that have the right connections and know certain things about it, then you can really go as far as you want. So it
Yeah.
is important. It's important to have those people that are passionate, but also it's important to have those people that have the connections and really have the knowledge of it as well. So
Yeah. And, it makes a world of difference in what can be done.
mhm.
Because, like you said, I mean, we see a lot of coalitions that can fizzle out because it doesn't
Yes.
feel like they're getting ground. And so a lot of the times we'll see coalitions start because of a cause and then fizzle out because, well, it seems overwhelming or
Yeah.
the resources aren't available or the connections aren't there. And that's the last thing we want because
Yeah.
coalitions and grassroots is what truly does make a change.
Yes.
Um, but it's much more than that, I think, in the bigger picture of things because we look at not only changing our local community but influencing the bigger picture. And that's one thing I think a lot of the times we forget in prevention that yes, we're just a little grass blade out
Yep.
there,
Yeah.
but if we nurture and see, here I go with my references again. You seed the grass in one area, right, and
Yep.
water it, it's going to grow and be prosperous. If you
Yeah.
continue to spread that seeding and nourish it and do it only because spring's right around the corner, so good
Yes.
lawning tips,
Yes.
HGTV, here we come. Um, and you start to do that and nurture it and take it a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
You can really make a good stable foundation
Of course.
to keep it there and nurture it. And I mean, it doesn't go, you can't just seed it once. You can't just fertilize it once and say, oh, it's good.
Yeah. And
Living
being
in
patient
patience is key. Yeah.
because growing
It,
stuff is hard.
yeah. And, I think that it's kind of meaningful for our rural areas that we serve because we do have a lot of
Yeah.
farmers. So that correlation is definitely, I think, relatable for our rural area because a lot of them do. I mean, long hours, hard work,
Hmm.
patience, and
Yep.
time, and everything we do in life. If we want that change and we want those impacts, we have to be a farmer in our community for
Yeah.
change.
I
And
love
so,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and sometimes those things can look different. And I look at a lot of the fields I drive by, and you know, they have stakeholders as well, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah.
They put a stake in the ground to help hold up their corn, just so it doesn't fall over. And that's what we're
Yeah.
looking at in a whole of what stakeholders do. They're there for support and to help make sure that things are growing and going the right direction.
Yeah,
So
of course. Yeah.
yeah, see, look at all
Well,
my cut-ins there. We went from the Chiefs to farming to HGTV. I mean,
exactly. We can start our own channel now. We're good. We
we
got
are,
all of
yeah.
it.
We're gonna, what is that, a reality TV show? And
Yeah, sure.
I mean, if we film in the office, I think we could probably make it work. But
So true. Yeah.
don't
I
tell
think that could be
anybody.
great.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone, all of our listeners, don't tell
Yeah,
anyone.
yeah, don't tell anybody. So, but
Well,
yeah.
yeah, Cory, thank you so much for all this information. If you could leave the listeners with one statement, um, just like a parting way statement to kind of keep them thinking about this, what would it be?
Ooh, that's, you always stick me with this. You think I'd think about it
I
before
know,
we
I'm
end.
so sorry.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, I think, I want to just really tie in some things. We talked about a lot,
We
and it
did.
felt probably like it was all over the place. But the one big thing to take away from it is, I watched the show. It's called Facing the Giant. Um,
Okay.
Great movie. Has some faith to it, but neither nor here. It talks about the stone wall. And sometimes as a stakeholder, as a community member, we have to be a stone wall, and stand up for what we want and really be persistent.
Yeah.
And whenever we have the right components, the right people, the right fertilizer, the right whatever it is that we're using to help strengthen, that stone wall becomes a lot harder to break down. And so
Yes.
having the right people at the table makes that strong wall so we can push and build and become stronger with our cause. And so as listeners, if you're wanting to get involved, be that solid piece of brick in that wall, or that
Yeah.
strong blade of grass, or wait a minute, wait for it, offensive line of the Chiefs that allow
Oh,
no
goodness.
sacks, um, and in your community for change. Um,
Yeah.
what strengths do you bring? Dive into that. What are you passionate about? And talk about it. Share it. Use that as your networking piece, because you never know what connection you may make that you can be beneficial for someone else, or they can be beneficial for you. So get
Yeah.
out, socialize, be strong, and have fun.
Yeah. I think that's a wonderful thing to end on. Cory, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. And thank you to all of our listeners. We hope you can tune in to other episodes, especially the ones that Cory has been a guest
Yeah.
on as
Just
well.
mine.
So,
Just mine.
all Cory's, yep. Well, thank you guys so much. We hope you have a fantastic day. Bye,
You as well.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into our podcast. Remember to follow us on social media at PFH Prevention. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Spotify, and more podcasting platforms. And make sure to email us at moprevention@pfh.org with any questions, and feel free to call us at 660-627-7404. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.